Well, good morning and welcome to Raised in Alaska. I'm in the process of cleaning out my freezer. We're about 9 months out of hunting season, so 3 months to go till hunting season starts up again. And fishing season we're just on the edge of fishing season, and so I'm trying to consolidate my freezers and make room for the upcoming bounty and make sure I don't waste anything. And so today we're going to look at how to make chili, and I'll tell you most of this video is going to be kind of the experimental side of it. And what I mean when I say experimental side is for years and years and years I've canned salmon. Probably 15 years I've been canning salmon, and it's always turned out very well. I mean, there was a learning process along the way, but I figured it out. And I know people who can other things, chili, stew, things like that, but I've never done that before. And so I decided that while I'm in the process of cleaning out my freezer, I will go ahead. Mosquitoes are horrible out here. I will go ahead and try making some chili. And so the initial portion of this video, and probably the bulk of it actually, is the experimental side of A, can I can chili, and B, will it be any good at all? And in here there's a couple clips you'll see that are from the secondary canning process when I decided it did turn out pretty well, and I'm going to go ahead and can a bunch of it. And so in the initial experimental side, I went and got some black beans and some pinto beans, and I got them dry, because dry is probably 25 to 30% of the price of beans that you buy in a can that are already soaked. And if I'm going to make a ton of it, I thought I'm going to try to do this on the cheap and make a bulk amount at a pretty low price. Hence the prepper style title, is that I want to do it cheap, and I wanted to make a bunch of it. And so in the process is really the same whether you're doing a small batch or a large batch, but for this video I just wanted to see, can I do this and will it be any good at all? And so I used a chili recipe that I've used for a while. I made a gallon of chili and I canned it up, and it turned out really, really good. Maybe better than when you normally do it in a crock pot all day. And so I decided I'm going to go ahead and make a bulk batch. And to make the bulk batch, what I did was I went to Costco and I bought a 25-pound bag of black beans, huge bag like this. And then I went to one of the local stores and bought a 3-pound bag of pinto beans and a pound bag of kidney beans. And I would have had more kidney beans because that's a classic chili bean, but they didn't have it in bulk anywhere. Personally, I use black beans in lots of things, and so that was a smart way to go, to get a big bag of that. But the pinto beans I don't really use in anything, and kidney beans I wouldn't either, but it would have been nice to have more kidney beans in there, but I think it turned out fine. So I soaked those overnight for 24 hours, and I ended up using, for this recipe that you'll see here, I ended up using 7 pounds of dry beans, and they swell up to probably double their size. And then I used 4 pounds of moose burger, and I used a bunch of spices and 2 or 3 onions and some bell peppers, and then I did half of it with jalapenos and half of it with no jalapenos, because my family wouldn't eat the jalapeno ones. And I went ahead and canned it up. And so most of this video that you're going to look at here is just the experimental, the 1 gallon. And then the 5-gallon batch that I made later on, there's a couple clips in here, but again, the process is exactly the same. So I'm going to take you through how I made that chili, and at the end of this video, then I'll have a little reflection about how it went and if there was anything I'd do different. Thanks for tuning in. We appreciate it, and here's how you make chili. Okay, today I'm going to make about a gallon of chili and can it into quart jars. I've already soaked my beans for about 24 hours. And there are pinto beans and black beans in there. And I'm going to start browning my hamburger, and then I'll add stuff into this while this hamburger is browning. And this hamburger up here, if you can see, it says chili. When we ground this burger, oh, this is moose burger, by the way. When we ground this burger, we used a really big grinder plate so that it would kind of have some texture to it. And while that's going, I'm going to get everything else added in here that I want in here.
going to start with a can of green chilies. I'm going to cut up an onion. And I like canning outside because if you can inside, it stinks your whole house up. And so when you can outside, then the smell's outside and you don't have to worry about it. And I just throw stuff on the ground and I'll pick it up later. And it just makes it so that you don't have such a mess in your house to clean up. And now I'm going to put in 1 pepper. Sometimes we do this and sometimes we don't. Okay, I'm going to start adding some spices into this right now. I'm going to add 3 tablespoons of chili powder in here. Actually, yeah, I have it 2.5 actually. Add a teaspoon of garlic. And I have this minced garlic. I'm going to put in about 2/3 of a tablespoon, which is really 2 teaspoons, right, of cumin. And the cumin, you don't see that in a lot of chili recipes, but it really brings out, it adds a nice flavor to it. I'm going to add 1.5 teaspoons of salt. And 1/2 teaspoon of black pepper. So this whole can, normally you buy cans of like stewed tomatoes. They're, I forget, $2-3 a can or something. This whole can at Costco is $5. And so I'm going to use some of it today, but then later when I go, this is just an experiment. And later when I do, and I'm sure the experiment's going to work out, but later in a couple days then I'm going to make a huge batch of chili, probably like 3 gallons, and can that up. Measured out just about perfectly, yes. And the reason I cooked the meat, you could have done the meat in here raw, but I kind of wanted it to break up a little bit into crumbles so that I would have a more controlled setting for it. I'm going to mix all this up, then I'm going to put it on the stove, and I want to heat this all the way up. I don't want to put it into the jars cold, and so I'm going to heat this up. Now I'm going to do with all of these is just add a little bit of hot water on them. This is boiling water, and it should then make it so that heat gets transferred through the jar well. But you want to make sure you leave at least 1 inch of headspace on the top. And I'll put a band on every one of these, and you just want these to be like finger tight. You don't have to put them gorilla tight. You can see this is just starting to vent, and so you can see a little bit of steam coming out of that, hopefully. We're going to wait until it's shooting steam out solid for 10 minutes. This one here has not started shooting steam out yet. It's always nice if you can cap them at the same time, but whatever. So I did look at the National Food Preservation site just to double check all my stuff, and so you can see this is venting almost solid now. And what they say is for for what we're canning here, we're going to can it for 75 minutes in quarts. So in quarts, it's 75 minutes and at 10 pounds of pressure. And you can see I have a weighted thing here, and it says 5, 10, 15 pounds. And so what we'll do is we'll just put that on there, and then it just rattles away. And the longer it goes, the more as the contents heat all the way up, you have to back the heat off a little bit. But we're still going to wait. This isn't, I would say this, you can see it sputtering once in a while. There's a sputter. And so it's not totally ready yet. And this one's a little ways to go yet. So we're going to just let this sit for a bit, and we'll come back. So that is a full vent right there. So we're going to give that 10 minutes. Okay, they've both been venting for 10 minutes. And so I'm going to put this weight on there. Weight on there. Let's see if you can see that. There. And then they'll slowly come up to pressure. And when they get to 10 pounds of pressure, they'll start venting. And once they start venting, they'll be rattling. And then we'll go ahead and start the 75-minute timer. Okay, we're just past 10 pounds, and you can see that it's venting and rattling there. Same thing over here. And so we're going to go ahead and start the 75-minute timer. Okay, I'm 45 minutes in. I dialed the heat back just a little bit, and I'm running nice. Okay, so it's down to 0. And so I'm going to go ahead and pull this off. These are generally still pretty hot, so you don't want to grab them with your fingers. I've done that before. It was a bad idea. And then we're going to let this wait for 10 minutes, and then we'll go ahead and see what kind of mess we got in there. I know we got a mess in there for sure. Hopefully it's only one jar. Those all look good. So, what I learned in this process was when I did my 1 gallon of chili, I used the normal recipe I always make chili out of, and when we canned it, it turned out really well. When I made this, the next batch, I didn't really know how big it was going to be, and so I about tripled probably the amount of stuff that I put in it. And after I canned it and had some of it, I think it has good flavor, it has good texture, but it's not as flavorful as the gallon of chili that I made or how I normally do it, because realistically, instead of doing 1 gallon, I did like 6 gallons, 6 gallons the second time. And I should have taken, I mean, this is just smart, right? I should have taken 1 times 5 equals 5 batches instead of 1 times 3 equals 5 batches. That math doesn't work out, right? I mean, you don't have to be a genius to figure that one out. It still turned out well, and most certainly we're still going to eat it, but I might, when I heat it up at home, I might just add a little bit more into it. And next year what I'll do, now that I know that 7 pounds of beans is going to equal about 5 pounds of chili, I'm going to take my recipe times 5, and I think it'll be a lot better. But other than that, it turned out really good, and I did it pretty inexpensive. The beans were cheap. Instead of buying 1 can of tomatoes or 2 cans of tomatoes, I went to Costco and got the number 10 can. I think making it bulk is most certainly cheaper, and as long as a guy can nail down a good solid recipe, you're going to be fine. And so, hey, thanks for tuning in today. We always appreciate it, and we have a couple other experimental things coming up, and then some other canning videos and stuff coming up. But we're getting really close to fishing season, and right after that is hunting season. So I think there's better adventures abound in the future. Thanks for watching.